Billionaire David Richmond asked his waitress for financial advice as a joke at Manhattan's Chateau Laurent. "How about giving me some financial advice along with that water?" He laughed, not looking up from his phone. Kesha Williams, 28, paused. Something in his dismissive tone struck a nerve. "Actually," she said, her voice professional but her eyes flashing, "I would invest 40% in emerging market ETFs focused on sustainable energy, 25% in medical technology stocks currently undervalued, 20% in commercial real estate funds in secondary metros, 10% in agricultural commodities as inflation hedge, and keep 5% liquid for arbitrage opportunities." The silence was deafening. David finally raised his head, his condescending smile freezing as he processed institutional-level financial analysis from a waitress. "Sorry, what did you say?" "You asked for investment advice." "I just answered." The entire restaurant stopped to watch. "Where exactly did you learn about emerging markets?" David asked, now genuinely curious. Kesha smiled. "You'd be surprised what a person can learn when they don't underestimate the intelligence of others." David watched her walk away, confused and fascinated. This woman didn't fit her role. Over the next 15 minutes, he did something rare. He paid attention to someone he considered inferior. "Michael," he whispered to his partner, "find out everything about this woman." When Kesha returned, David was ready. "So, Kesha, I imagine you studied at Harvard or Stanford?" "Actually, I learned by watching people like you make terrible decisions based on arrogance rather than data." The comment cut like a blade. No one spoke to him that way. "Listen here," David leaned forward, menacing. "I've worked in this city 15 years. If you were someone relevant, I would know." "The interesting thing about people in positions of power," Kesha said calmly, "is how you confuse visibility with competence." David immediately called his investigator. "I need you to investigate Kesha Williams. I want everything." What David didn't know was that Kesha had been a senior quantitative analyst at Goldman Sachs for 5 years, developing algorithms that generated over $200 million before being falsely accused of insider trading by her supervisor who needed a scapegoat. The charge never stuck, there was no evidence, but it destroyed her Wall Street reputation. The waitressing job was temporary survival while she rebuilt her life. 3 days later, David had a confusing report. No criminal record, community college degree, no financial experience on paper. "This doesn't make sense," he told Michael. "No one develops that expertise from night classes." What David didn't know was that Kesha was investigating him, discovering suspicious trading patterns suggesting systematic insider information exploitation. "Richmond is investigating you," said Marcus Chun, her former Goldman colleague, sliding her an envelope. "He's obsessive. Perfect. He's seeing exactly what I want him to see," Kesha replied. "When he humiliated me, I saw an opportunity. Men like David have a giant blind spot. They can't accept that someone they consider inferior could be smarter." David intensified his campaign, frequenting the restaurant regularly, asking questions to catch her in contradictions. One Thursday, he publicly humiliated her with a trap question about Vietnamese trade agreements she answered incorrectly. "People like her need to learn their place," he told Michael coldly. But Kesha had deliberately given the wrong answer, testing how far he'd go. Every display of cruelty was catalogued. More importantly, his constant appearances let her overhear confidential conversations, like mentions of a hostile takeover of a medical technology company. "He's setting up something big," she told Marcus. "I've identified at least 6 instances of possible insider trading over 2 years. Those are serious accusations. We need solid evidence. I'll get it. Richmond thinks he's hunting, but he's become the prey." 3 weeks after their first meeting, the trap closed. David stood in his conference room presenting the hostile takeover to eager investors. The door opened. Kesha entered, no longer in uniform, but an elegant executive suit. "Sorry to interrupt, but there's crucial information you need before signing anything." David's blood ran cold. "What the hell are you doing here?" "I just came to clear up misunderstandings about who I really am. My name is Kesha Williams, but for 5 years I worked as Kesha Davidson, senior quantitative analyst at Goldman Sachs, specializing in emerging markets and fraud detection." She opened her briefcase. "While you thought you were hunting me, I was collecting evidence of your illegal activities." She placed documents on the table. Gentlemen, allow me to present evidence that Richmond Investments has systematically used insider information, violating SEC regulations on at least 15 documented occasions. This is absurd. David stood. She's lying. A waitress who listened to your confidential calls for 3 weeks, Kesha replied calmly. She played a recording. David's voice filled the room discussing how to mask insider information sources. The evidence piled up. Emails, call logs, suspicious transactions, a clear pattern of market manipulation spanning years. Every time you publicly humiliated me, you gave me exactly what I needed to expose your operation. Is this true? Asked the lead investor. I've already handed copies to the SEC, FBI, and 3 financial journalists, Kesha said. The Wall Street Journal publishes tomorrow morning. Investors rushed out. David's phone rang incessantly. You've destroyed everything, he whispered. I've exposed the truth. Because men like you believe they can humiliate people with impunity. Because you saw a black waitress and assumed she was inferior. But mainly because someone needed to prove that underestimating the right people can be the most costly mistake you can make. 6 months later, Kesha sat in her new office on the 35th floor. The plaque read, Financial Consulting CEO and Founder. The Wall Street Journal had featured her. The analyst who toppled an empire. David Richmond's sentence just came down, Marcus announced. 15 years plus $2.8 billion in fines. Kesha looked out the window. You know what's most ironic? He truly believed humiliating people was a sign of superiority. It never occurred to him that each act of contempt provided exactly the motivation necessary for his own destruction. David Richmond had become a complete pariah. His company bankrupt, investors gone, mansion auctioned. He tried to humiliate a waitress, but ended up creating his own nemesis. Kesha learned that true revenge isn't repaying damage. It's achieving success enemies could never imagine.